Fight fam, what's good? Welcome back to the Mic Check Podcast. This is T Word, the People's Champ. Thanks for tapping in. Been a couple days since I checked in with you guys, but I'm back in action. Schedule's getting a little crazy, so not able to put out the videos on the schedule that I was. However, I'm going to do my best to put out this great ass content. That being said, today we're going to talk about Errol Spence. He's broken his silence and done a few quote unquote interviews as of late. And we want to talk about that today, as well as a little bit of the comments that Derrick James made about what's going on with him and his camp and his stable of fighters. Before we get into the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We appreciate that feedback. And hey, by all means, if you're feeling generous, donate to that Cash App, $THAMICCHECK12. That's the Mic Check 12 on Cash App. Support the channel. That means we get to do doper shit for you guys, better graphics, better everything. And if we need to, we could pay some guests to come on here if we want to get some good interviews or whatever. That's the way that your money will be used to help this channel grow. But until then, we're going to get all this dope ass content regardless. That being said, let's get into the topic. All right, so over the last couple of days, starting with like Saturday, Sunday, leading into Monday, Errol Spence did two interviews, or there were two interviews that were released to where he gave some insight as to where he's at with the Terrence Crawford situation, as well as where he's at with boxing in general. So we're going to start with the interview that I saw first. There's a screenshot on display as you listen to this. He did an interview with this young lady. It's On the Rocks with AO. On the Rocks with AO is her podcast. Feel free to go over there, like, comment, subscribe. She posted this, and she's been doing it for a couple of months, but she finally decided to bring Errol Spence on, and this is the man in her life. She's the lady in his life. So the intimacy in it allows for certain aspects of this conversation to fly, because you can see that she took care to make sure that she allowed Errol to speak his mind, but at the same time, she provided basically lay up questions that allow him to talk about certain issues that have been in the public. And the good thing about it is it wasn't traditional media, so it didn't come off like he was trying to just like promote a fight. It came off like he was trying to big up his old lady and get her platform on the next level. She's at, like, last time I checked, she was at like 1,300 subs. By the time you see this video, she might be at 20,000 for all I know. But that being said, some of the things they talked about, a lot of the interview was about more personal things, such as his perspective on family life and the way that he approaches, raising his kids, dealing with the tragedies and triumphs in his life, as far as the accident, the eye injury, overcoming, basically dealing with his demons, who was his favorite fight, things like that. But what most fight fans tuned into, especially those who aren't Errol Spence fans, they tuned in to find out what he said about Bud Crawford. And something specific that he said is they've been spending time talking on the phone. Like, they're talking like once every 2 weeks. And leading up to a fight, I don't know how I feel about this. I don't really like that aspect, simply because your goal is to beat this man's ass. So what is there to talk about? Like, why are you spending time discussing anything with Bud Crawford when your goal is to get in there and fight? Now, he did explain that in a subsequent interview, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But when I first saw this interview with AO, I definitely was like, why are you talking to Bud for like 40 minutes, bro? Like, what is there to talk about? And then I jumped on the live stream with Pull Counter Boxing, and one of his guest panelists basically was like, hey, Pull, I got this idea for you. Within about 2 minutes, it was $1 million deal. Basically, Pull Counter Boxing agreed to do it. He hauls for a living, like big truck driving, and he agreed within a few minutes that, hey, if it's legit, I'm going for it. So that was an illustration of why is there all this conversation needed in order for Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence to fight. Because for me, we can have one conversation, because Bud did say at one point, hey man, Errol Spence wasn't at the negotiating table. Okay, bet. I'm not coming to the table anyway, because I pay people to do that for me that understand what needs to be negotiated. But if it appeases you and it's going to appeal to your senses and get you to get into the ring and sign that contract first, okay, let's get on the phone. What you want to talk about? But immediately I'm going to Well, we're gonna make a whole lot of money, and one of us is gonna be undisputed when this fight is over. It could be you, but if I got anything to do with it, it's gonna be me. After that, what is there to talk about? So to me, that just let me know that Errol is in a position where it feels like he's having to court Bud to get him to agree to fight. And I don't like the fact that the fighter has to do this. I think that's what the promotional companies, the media people, the lawyers, and all them people should be doing. But he let it be known that he basically he courting Bud in order to get him into the ring. He's coaxing him, in order to get him into the ring to fight. I just don't like how that goes. Hopefully, whatever he was saying, he said negotiations are going good, and he didn't get too much into the minutia of boxing in the interview with his old lady. But then he followed that up, and there's an interview with Ellie Seckbach of ES News. Now, I didn't include any clips in this video because I don't want to ride on anybody else's coattails, but he kind of went a little bit further. Ellie had the advantage of already having seen the interview with Errol and AO going into this. So that means that he had to talk to this man like Monday. And as you can see, Errol Spence is in the gym. If you're looking at the screen, I'm flipping through the screenshots. Look at him. The man is on weight. Now, I don't know how many people out there are weight specialists, personal trainers, or the like, but that's what I do for a living. And I can tell you that this man has been near 147 for the last couple of months. I would say the biggest he got since like December, right after the accident, might have been like 175. So you're talking about like 30 pounds to come down over the next several months. So he was within striking distance of 147. And just to make it on the scale, he could blow right back up that Saturday morning and be able to scale whatever, if he needed, because he's IBF. He could have been able to scale or whatever, 10%, 10 pounds over 147 the very next day and start to rehydrate within 24 hours. All right. So that being said, he's in the gym. Obviously, he's training for something. And he was talking about, negotiations are going good. He feels like he and Terrence Crawford are turning a corner to go ahead and get this thing done. He has stated very specifically, yes, the fight is going to happen. He let the fans know it's going to happen. So the way I take it is we don't have to make a bunch of videos about it as far as content creators, but we need to be rest assured that that announcement is going to come. The date, hey, TBD, to be determined. But I'm going to take him as a man of his word. He said, I'm going to clean up my side of the street and I'm coming after Terrence. He did that. Why would I believe anything different? He said, I don't need no tune-ups. He came off an injury. He fought Danny Garcia. That ain't no tune-up. He had an eye injury. He went and fought Jordanis Ugas. That ain't no tune-up. So when you look at his tapestry of truth, this man has stuck to the script and he's played his position and said what he had to say. So he stuck by it. I'm going to stick by it too. So with Ellie, he got a little bit more. He tried to press him about specific things, asking him about, who's the face of boxing and stuff like that. None of that shit matters in this video. What mattered most is he was saying that he only has one fight. He said this in both interviews. It's only one dude on my hit list. I want Terrence Crawford. I want to beat him up, and I'm going in there for the knockout. What that tells me is that Errol Spence has a singular focus, and he's willing to stay out of the ring until then. He even told that to AO. I've been out of the ring because I have intentions to fight Terrence Crawford. So in my opinion, we should just chill. Hey man, focus on other things. There's fights happening at 118, 115, 122, 126, 130, 35, 40, 54. Not a lot at 60 or 68, 75, and even heavyweight potentially by the end of this year. There's a lot of other boxing to think about. So we don't need to focus on this fight until they give us an official date where we see both of them at the press conference saying, I'm coming to the ring to kick that man's ass. So that being said, I just think that for now, we just need to chill and not worry about what Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford are going to do, because it sounds like, according to Errol Spence, it's going to happen. Now I want to change gears a little bit, and I'm going to use this video to talk about what Derrick James had to say. Ellie Seckbach was in the gym, and he talked to Derrick, and he talked about Frank Martin and what was in the future for basically the fighters in his stable. Ellie was trying to press him about who's your favorite fighter, who's this, who's that. Derrick wasn't having it. He basically said like he tries to watch boxing as a fan, so he doesn't have a vested interest. He just wants to be able to just watch fights, and if he just hopes there's a winner, then he's gonna be satisfied that somebody wins or loses, and I can respect that. A lot of people misconstrue when he talks about he doesn't watch boxing for he doesn't watch boxing like that. Basically, he's saying he's not watching to try and figure out who's the best, because at some point he's got fighters in different divisions. You know, he doesn't watch it with that lens. He wants to watch it for enjoyment in the limited time that he does. Now, he talked about, you know, training his fighters and strategy and how does he get ready for fights, and he talked about Frank Martin, and specifically I want to talk about Frank Martin versus Keyshawn Davis. So he was basically saying he doesn't think it's a good time for this fight to happen because Keyshawn Davis is only a handful of fights in, and if he loses, then his promoter is basically going to look at him like, you told us you were ready and you weren't. And what does it do for Frank? If you're beating a guy with only 8 fights and you're in the teens, hitting the 20 fights, and a contender level looking at a belt, why would you fight him? So he doesn't see where anybody really benefits from that. Frank isn't going to get credit for beating what's considered a prospect, and Keyshawn isn't going to get any sympathy if he loses to a contender. So my perspective on it is, what Derrick is saying is, I'm not the manager or the promoter, so I'm not going to tell these people who to fight. He also talked about Anthony Joshua fighting Jermaine Franklin, and he said that wasn't the fight he would have picked. I think he wanted a more developmental fight because there's certain elements of the strategy that he wanted Anthony Joshua to develop, and Jermaine Franklin just wasn't the right opponent for that. So he also talked about he likes to be the one to take the blame because he comes up with the game plan for his fighter. And this is different than something you might have heard from Joe Goosen with Ryan Garcia. He's saying, I put the game plan to get in the fight, and the fighter did it. If whatever fight they fight, that's on me. So if it's not good, then it's my fault. If it's good, give the fighter credit for executing a great game plan. And I like his approach. I like that he's an analytical coach, but he also understands he's in the mindset of the fighter. I'm a personal trainer. I like to get in the mindset of the person I'm training because it helps me get better results. And I think that's why he has 2 world-class level fighters. He has a really good contender who could be a world-class level fighter. And then he's got Anthony Joshua, who comes in a bit ready-made, but I think he's somebody he could reform given time. Now, they asked him about Anthony Joshua against Deontay Wilder, and I got to say it, Derrick didn't seem like he really wanted to talk about that shit because I think he knows the flaws in Anthony Joshua and what Deontay Wilder brings to the table. And I just think that at this point in their careers, Wilder's right hand is greater than any skills that you could develop in Joshua before December. He didn't give away a lot of information about what's coming up next. He talked about one of his fighters who recently got injured, but for the most part, he tried to give a good interview without giving away too much. And I can respect that because whatever's in the camp needs to stay in the camp. But I'm going to go ahead and close it right there. I feel like I've gone a little bit too long. So I want to get you guys' thoughts. What do you think about Errol Spence's comments when he talked to AO? And then when he talked double down on some of these comments again with Ellie Seckbach? And then what do you think about what Derrick James had to say about the state of his current fighters, including Jamel Charlo? All right, so this has been T-Word for the Mic Check Podcast. Until the next time, I'm out. Peace.